saw the private photos my sister-in-law sent to her sister. I realized that the little girl had grown up. In order to keep it secret, my sister-in-law made all kinds of promises I didn't know until we were lying together. It turned out that all this was carefully planned by her, and even my wife was involved. After doing yoga with my wife, she went to take a shower, but her phone suddenly rang. I took it and saw that it was 2 sexy photos sent by my sister-in-law, asking my wife which one was better. My eyes lit up and sat up and observed carefully. I saw that my sister-in-law was wearing 2 sets of sexy gauze pajamas in the 2 photos, and the material was so transparent that it couldn't be more transparent. Sensitive parts can be seen almost all the time, and there is almost no difference from not wearing anything. My sister-in-law is 20 years old. She usually dresses conservatively and has always been a pure and lovely jade girl. I didn't expect that she has such a lustful side. And I found that her figure is so good, with a full chest, which looks like half a coconut upside down on it. Elastic and upright, not sagging because of being too big, and no less inferior to her sisters. With pink skin, a small waist that can be held in one hand, and a pair of slender legs, I feel that her figure complements her sisters'. In the photo, she has a charming expression, sweet tongue and lips, and she looks as tempting as she can be. I couldn't help but feel a little palpitation in my heart. I didn't expect that my sister-in-law, who is usually a good girl, is so wild and open in private. If my wife hadn't happened to take a shower, I wouldn't have discovered her so shameless side. I forwarded all the photos to my mobile phone, deleted the records, and clicked on them one by one to observe carefully, focusing on the private parts. The more I looked, the more itchy my heart became. At this time, my sister-in-law suddenly sent a message, asking my wife if she looked good. "Everything is good," I replied casually. "Are you my brother-in-law?" After a while, there was another message on the phone. How did she know? My sister never replies to my messages perfunctorily. I know it's you at first glance. Perhaps she guessed that I would have this question, so my sister-in-law replied immediately. I finally understood. I didn't expect that I would be caught by my sister-in-law on the spot when I secretly looked at the sexy photos sent by my sister-in-law. I wanted to find an excuse to perfunctorily answer, but my sister-in-law called me directly. "Brother-in-law, my sister is not with you, right?" Unexpectedly, her tone was a little nervous. "No, what's the matter?" "Brother-in-law, you can look at it yourself, but don't spread it. If you can agree, I can do anything." My sister-in-law breathed a sigh of relief and said to me with courage. The later it got, the more shy my sister-in-law became, and even her voice became much smaller. The meaning was very obvious, and an adult would know it. If another woman said this, I would of course be very happy, but she is my sister-in-law. After thinking for a moment, I raised the corner of my mouth and said, "Really? Really? Anything is fine?" The word "do" was emphasized by me. My sister-in-law probably didn't expect me to ask her back, and she hesitated shyly. My original intention was to tease her, so how could I really ask her to do anything? "Don't worry, brother-in-law is just joking with you. I won't spread the photos. I have deleted them." "Brother-in-law, you are so bad. You scared me." My sister-in-law exhaled lightly and said to me coquettishly. I glanced at the photos saved on my phone and smiled. How could I delete them? I took them out to appreciate them when I have nothing to do. I can fantasize about them even if I can't eat meat. By the way, brother-in-law, my school will be on holiday tomorrow. Can you pick me up? My sister-in-law asked tentatively. I immediately understood that she was probably still worried. I have to go to work tomorrow, so I don't have time. Why don't you take a taxi home? I immediately rejected her. It's okay. I'm on holiday in the evening. I can wait for you. My sister-in-law still insisted. I almost saw you all. Don't you feel embarrassed to meet you? Then you take those 2 sets of sexy pajamas. I blurted it out for some reason. My sister-in-law was silent for a while and shyly said hateful. Sorry, I was just kidding. In fact, I regretted it as soon as I said it. My sister-in-law didn't continue the topic, and after saying, see you tomorrow, brother-in-law, she hung up the phone directly. She must come to check it out. My sister-in-law is still very young. She used to dress conservatively and only focused on studying. Now she is in college and loves beauty. It is normal for her to wear sexy clothes. What's more, she has such a good figure and is so beautiful. I don't know which stinky boy will get her in the future. I continued to stare at the photos of my sister-in-law on my phone, but I couldn't bear to delete them. After hiding the photos in a private folder, I went to bed. The next day, I came to the school gate and saw my sister-in-law wearing sexy clothes at a glance. It was different from the previous time when she came to my house to play. They were all casual clothes, and the loose clothes covered their bodies tightly. But at this moment, she was wearing a tight ant skirt, with her full and big breasts pushing up the skirt, and her slender waist and tight buttocks were all perfectly displayed. So beautiful, so sexy. It was the first time I saw such a contrasting sister-in-law, with black stockings wrapped around her slender thighs and high heels. Under the dim street lights, it was absolutely amazing, making people want to play with it. Didn't you worry about me and check that I didn't delete the photos? What does this mean? Seduce me? Brother-in-law to the sister-in-law shouted timidly. As expected, she probably felt that I had a handle in my hand, and even the voice of calling brother-in-law was much smaller than usual. The corners of my mouth curled up slightly, and I didn't choose to tease her anymore, but took her to the car. Brother-in-law, how do you adjust the seat? The sister-in-law was a little at a loss. She was tall and the seat was too far forward, and she was so anxious that the waves on her chest jumped a few times. Here, I'll do it for you. I put away my dull eyes and pressed my entire upper body on her. We were so close that I could even feel the burning heat on her legs and the pure fragrance wafting from her body. Brother-in-law, haven't you found it yet? My sister-in-law's face was full of blushes, and the softness of her chest was pressed by me. She was so shy that she almost crawled under the car. I actually found it a long time ago, but my sister-in-law's body was too fragrant and too soft. I lost this opportunity and didn't know when I could enjoy it again, so I wanted to linger for a while. There was no way, she had already spoken, so I could only straighten my body with unsatisfied feelings. When I got home, my wife had already prepared the meal, 4 dishes and 1 soup, and there was a bottle of red wine on the table. The 2 sisters hadn't seen each other for half a year, and I understood my wife's feelings. After my sister-in-law packed up and changed her clothes, the 3 of us sat at the table. Maybe she couldn't handle the wine. My wife returned to the room in a daze halfway through. Only my sister-in-law and I were left in the living room. Brother-in-law, I toast you. Thank you for not spreading the photos. Otherwise, I would not be able to live like a human being. My sister-in-law raised her glass. Her blushing face was so tempting. Although she was wearing home clothes at the moment, the expression on her face was the same as in the photo. I couldn't help but stare at her in amazement. Sister, I understand. You are an adult. You can decide what to wear. I secretly pinched my thigh and forced myself to wake up. It seems that she is finally going to talk about the photos. Fortunately, I have saved them in a private folder. We drank a glass together, and my sister-in-law poured me more wine. Brother-in-law, actually, I already have someone I like. My sister-in-law's eyes were like a pool of spring water, extremely tempting. Could it be that her 2 sets of sexy pajamas were for the person she likes to see? It's normal. College is a good time to fall in love. Remember to confirm the relationship and show it to your brother-in-law. I felt a little sour in my heart. After all, my sister-in-law belongs to someone else, and I am just her brother-in-law. In fact, you have seen him a long time ago, and you are very familiar with him. My sister-in-law's shy face has a half-smile. I have seen him? Who? I don't have such a friend in my impression. Then you have to promise not to tell my sister, and you won't tell anyone about what happened today, okay? My sister-in-law stood up, staring at me with her big watery eyes. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. I lowered my head quickly. As my sister-in-law stood up, the fragrance on her body drifted over, which made me feel a little hot. Brother-in-law, am I beautiful? Do I have a good figure? My sister-in-law suddenly changed the subject and walked around the dining table to me. Okay, it's sexier than your sister's. I felt a little dizzy, maybe because I drank too much, and I said it without thinking. But the next second, my sister-in-law's words shocked me. Brother-in-law, actually, I like you. My sister-in-law looked at me affectionately. How can this be possible? Although my sister-in-law is beautiful, I married her sister. What's the big deal? I know you won't agree, so? I put drugs in the wine. You should feel it now, right? My sister-in-law suddenly laughed. The little sheep who was caught turned into a vixen who was calculating. No wonder I was hot and dizzy all the time. I thought it was because she teased me today. It turned out to be her calculation. She didn't continue to explain, just took off her home clothes, and inside was a sexy pajamas like the one in the photo. Brother-in-law, I was wearing it for you to see. After that, my sister-in-law smiled evilly and pressed me on the sofa. But just when her almost transparent pajamas were about to stick to my face, my wife's voice came from the room. Husband, where are you? I'm thirsty. My wife woke up. My sister-in-law's face changed immediately, and her delicate body froze there, motionless. Are you still chatting? My wife came out of the bedroom in a daze. Seeing my sister-in-law and I in the living room, she was a little confused. But it should be that the effect of the drug has not gone away, so she did not have the abnormality of my sister-in-law and me. Well, it's not that my sister hasn't come back for a long time. We chatted for a while. I handed the water to my wife and explained nervously. My sister-in-law also responded repeatedly, not daring to mention what happened just now. Not only did she drug her sister to faint, but she also seduced me in sexy pajamas. This is a rebellious thing in my wife's family with strict family education. If my wife knew, my sister-in-law would really be ashamed to see people. Anyway, she's going to stay for a while. Let's talk later. Honey, I feel a little dizzy. Can you help me massage it? My wife shook her head and said to me in a tender voice. I nodded and agreed immediately, and took my wife back to the room. When we went back, my sister-in-law coughed on purpose, as if to attract my attention. I understand her idea, and she wants me to stay. But now I'm sober, and this kind of unethical taboo emotion is absolutely untouchable to me. I admit that I did have some improper thoughts about my sister-in-law just now, and even thought about how nice it would be to continue. But this is just an idea, and my feelings for my wife can completely suppress this idea in my heart. Just like everyone has a demon in their heart, the difference is that rational people will try their best to control it. Don't let the demon be released. This is also the reason why I only take advantage of my sister-in-law verbally, but not put it into action. After all, I am her brother-in-law, and I love her sister, not her. In the next few days, my sister-in-law has been living in my house. From time to time, she would secretly show me a sexy look, but she still didn't give up. But because her sister was at home and I was on guard against her, I didn't faint again that night. After being seduced by my sister-in-law several times in a row, I sighed helplessly and still asked my sister-in-law to meet me at a coffee shop. Little sister, you just went to college, and you have a good life waiting for you to enjoy. Don't waste your time on me. You can go out with your friends during the holidays. Maybe you can meet the person you are destined to be with. I didn't preach to her harshly. For young people today, preaching will only have the opposite effect. But I don't want to say it too clearly, for fear of hurting my sister-in-law's heart. After all, no matter what, we are a family in name only. But I really love you, brother-in-law. I only have you in my heart, and I don't want to contact other men. My sister-in-law stirred the coffee and said pitifully, "This is not love, it's just because we have been in contact for a long time, so you mistakenly think you love me." I explained to her patiently. Actually, this is my fault. I always treated you like a child and didn't notice that you had such thoughts. Don't worry, I won't do that again. Your sister and I will pay attention to it. My sister-in-law probably didn't expect me to reject her, and her face fell immediately. She was silent for a long time, as if she was thinking carefully. I waited patiently for her until she finished a cup of coffee, and then I saw her suddenly raise her head. No, this is love, I understand, brother-in-law. My sister-in-law was still trapped in her own logic and said firmly. I sighed deeply and grabbed my hair in distress. How can I explain this? She just believes this. Your feelings for me were wrong from the beginning. You can't make mistakes anymore. This is against ethics and morality. I can only talk about this taboo emotion. When it comes to this, my sister-in-law is also in trouble and doesn't know what to say. But then she seems to think of something, with a happy look on her face. Brother-in-law, you are talking about ethics with me, which means you have feelings for me too. I can wait for you, and you can also divorce my sister, so that everything will be fine, right? The sister-in-law became more and more excited and her voice became louder and louder. She attracted the attention of all the guests in the coffee shop. I had no choice, and I didn't know why she was thinking more and more crooked. Let me make it clear to you, I love your sister, now and in the future. I will not be with you. Do you understand this? I didn't want to talk nonsense anymore, so I could only say it more decisively. If I continue to pester her, I don't know what else she will think of. Moreover, I am also afraid that my wife will find something unusual. Compared with completely cutting off her hope and making her sad, I care more about my wife. The sister-in-law looked at me in shock, probably not expecting me to say such a heartless thing. Her face was full of sadness, and her eyes were slightly red. Sister, don't think about it. When you grow up a little bit, you will understand my good intentions. Seeing the sister-in-law sad, I couldn't bear it. I waved to the waiter and prepared tissues for her. Then I stood up and prepared to leave. If you don't accept my love, I will tell my sister that you almost violated me. My sister-in-law sat there, her voice low. I was stunned for a moment, looking at her straight as if I had just met her for the first time. This time there was no desire in my eyes, only a strong sense of disbelief. She actually threatened me with this matter? I didn't expect that my sister-in-law would become so extreme after losing hope. If her sister, that is, my wife, knew about this, let alone what our relationship would become, my sister-in-law would definitely not be able to stay in this family. What good would this do for her? I understand that she said this in a moment of impulse, but the feeling of being threatened also aroused my anger. I have said all the good and bad words. If she still can't get over it, then I can't do anything. It's up to you. take care of yourself." After I finished speaking coldly, I left the cafe. My sister-in-law sat on the chair without moving, but she called me brother-in-law several times. I could feel the sadness and grief in her tone. But I had decided to draw a line between us. Rather than letting her threaten me with what happened that night, I would rather confess it myself. So I went straight back home and waited for my wife to come back. While waiting at home, I smoked a lot of cigarettes and thought a lot. I was worried that if I told my wife about it, she would get angry or hysterically yell at me. In the end, what if she wanted to divorce me? We have been together for nearly 10 years and married for 5 years. I loved her deeply, and she gave me everything. If she really wants to divorce me, it will be my eternal pain. But I don't want to keep entangled with my sister-in-law. After thinking for a long time, with cigarette butts all over the floor, I still made up my mind. At worst, I begged my wife not to leave, crying and kneeling. Anyway, my sister-in-law and I didn't have a real relationship, so it should be excusable. Thinking about this, time quickly came to the evening. What I didn't expect was that my wife came back with my sister-in-law. You. I looked at them in a daze, not knowing how to start. They came back together. Did the sister-in-law tell her sister about the almost rolling sheets that night? Probably not. Brother-in-law, why didn't you cook? I'm almost starving. My sister-in-law walked in with a smile, and her face was no longer sad and extreme as in the cafe. Husband, why don't we go out to eat? I'm tired and cooking is too troublesome. My wife put down her bag with a smile on her face. I suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. I know my wife. If she is angry, she will not give me a good face when she enters the door. Moreover, such a big thing will definitely violate her bottom line. A slap in the face is not a big deal. In this situation, should I confess directly? I looked at their smiling faces and was a little unsure whether to speak. Let's go, sister. I'm really hungry. My sister-in-law may have seen my hesitation. She turned her head and hugged her sister's arm and kept acting coquettishly, as if to stop me. Okay, let's go now. After my wife finished speaking lovingly, she looked at me with some doubts in her eyes. For fear that my wife would find something unusual, I suppressed the distracting thoughts in my heart. Let's go. I waved my hand and walked past them to the door first. Since my sister-in-law did not choose to tell her sister in the end, it means that she should have thought it through. If I speak again at this time, wouldn't it be unnecessary and add a difficulty to my marriage life with my wife? Moreover, this will also have a significant impact on my sister-in-law. Forget it, we will work things out when the time comes. My sister-in-law and I had our own thoughts during this meal. But the meal was still full of laughter. I don't know why my wife asked my sister-in-law to find a boyfriend at school, saying that this is what college students should do. Academics and other things can be put aside for now. After she finished speaking, my sister-in-law looked up at me with a complicated look. I immediately turned my head to the side and pretended to pick up some food. She then perfunctorily agreed to my wife. I understand that she can't let go of this matter for a while, and it will take time to erase it. As long as I don't respond to her, sooner or later, she will figure it out herself. So, during the meal, I kept picking up food for my wife to show the deep affection between us. I hope that after she sees it, she will completely give up her idea of me. But, man proposes, God disposes. On the last night before she was about to start school, my wife happened to be on a business trip. I was sleeping in the room when I suddenly heard the sound of the bedroom door opening. Because my wife was not at home, my sister-in-law and I were alone together. This situation made me feel a little complicated, and I didn't feel sleepy until very late. I thought to myself that she would start school tomorrow, and I finally didn't have to face her so awkwardly, so I fell asleep in a daze. But the sound of the bedroom door opening still woke me up, and even the few sleepiness I had completely dissipated. Who came in? There were only my sister-in-law and I at home. Could it be her? But she didn't continue to pester me during this period, so she should have figured it out. Or did a thief come in? This moment made me think of many possibilities, and the doubts in my heart drove me to sit up and look at the door. This glance made my heart beat faster. I saw my sister-in-law standing at the door wearing only a sexy suspender pajamas. Her shoulders and two slender white legs were exposed, and her bulging breasts pushed up a round arc on the pajamas. If you look closely, you can even see a faint pink. The slender and white legs were exposed, which was particularly conspicuous in the dim bedroom. Further up, there was a blurry black. Is she not wearing underwear? What is she doing? Continue to seduce me? What's wrong, sister? Is there anything? I swallowed my saliva and asked with a trembling voice. Although my sister-in-law was very tempting, I rarely had any desire in my heart. My feelings for my wife suppressed the distracting thoughts in my heart and made me very sober. Sister. Brother-in-law, there was thunder outside just now. I was a little scared. My sister-in-law probably didn't expect me to be awake. After standing there awkwardly for a while, she slowly moved to my bedside. I looked at the night sky without a single star outside. It was indeed thundering just now, and now there are even some small raindrops dripping slowly outside. But it is pure nonsense to make me believe that my sister-in-law is afraid of thunder. I remember my wife once told me that when my sister-in-law was young, every time there was thunder, my wife was afraid to find her to accompany her to sleep. So this is obviously an excuse made by the sister-in-law. Did she want to take advantage of her sister's business trip to continue what she had not completed before? It's okay, it was a dry thunder just now. It won't hit after the rain. Go back to sleep. I calmed down and said with a chuckle. Now I just want her to leave quickly. Which cadre can bear this temptation of tempting her brother-in-law with her body? I'm still a little scared, brother-in-law, can you accompany me? Not only did the sister-in-law not leave, she also sat directly on the bed, leaning her whole body against me. Before I could react, she hugged my arm and kept acting coquettishly. Through a thin layer of pajamas, the soft and smooth touch made me feel so soft, so hot, and so fragrant. I looked down inadvertently, and I actually saw some white coconut outlines through her collar. This made me feel a nameless evil fire surging in my heart. You should go back, sister. We are alone in a bedroom. If people know, they will gossip. I secretly pinched my thigh to calm myself down. But my arm was so tightly held by my sister-in-law that I couldn't pull it out for a while. Brother-in-law, no one will know. I promise. My sister-in-law's whole body was almost pressed on me, and I could clearly feel the hot air she exhaled. I understood what my sister-in-law meant. My wife was not at home, and there were only the two of us. As long as the two of us didn't say anything, no one would know about anything that happened in this room. Even if I really had sex with my sister-in-law. But I can't. I am a family man, and I am also her brother-in-law. If I really did something wrong in impulse, it would not only destroy my marriage with my wife, but also my sister-in-law's life. Thinking of this in my heart, my mind was clearer than ever before. I ignored my sister-in-law's resentful eyes, struggled to break free from her hands that were tightly holding me, turned on the light and got out of bed. Sister, you are still young. You don't understand the relationship. If something goes wrong, you will regret it in the future. I could leave directly, but after thinking for a moment, I still patiently explained. Now my sister-in-law has not entered the society yet, and the love she imagines in her heart must be beautiful. Now she is just temporarily trapped in the misunderstanding of love. Misunderstood the dependence on me as love. She will go back to school soon. If she goes back with reluctance, then from her extreme behavior in the coffee shop that day, God knows what she will do. It is possible to find a boyfriend and give herself completely. Am I not beautiful enough? Or my figure is not good enough? Why don't you want to accept me? Unlike the last rejection, this time my sister-in-law's eyes did not show despair and sadness. On the contrary, I even saw a half smile on her face. Is it my illusion? We are family. I am your brother-in-law, and I have always loved your sister. Sister, you deserve better. I softened my tone. This time my sister-in-law did not go to extremes, and I was still very happy. It means that she has already wavered in her thoughts, and what she is doing now is just pursuing the last bit of hope. Unexpectedly, my sister-in-law suddenly chuckled. Sister, come in, brother-in-law's feelings for you are really unwavering. The next second, she shouted to the door. What she said scared me. Her sister, isn't that my wife? Isn't she on a business trip? How could she be at home? I looked at the bedroom door in shock, watching it open a little bit, watching my wife walk in with a snicker. Of course, the husband I choose must be the one who loves me the most. My wife looked at me with a hint of ridicule and deep love. What's going on? I stared at the two sisters in amazement, full of doubts. My sister-in-law first smiled and looked at her sister, and when she saw her sister nod, she turned her eyes to me. Brother-in-law, do you remember the night I sent my sister a photo? I nodded. Then, my sister-in-law explained to me. It turned out that day, when she found out that it was me who looked at the photo, she was scared and had an idea. That was to test my feelings for her sister. Because the two sisters had experienced their father's cheating and their parents' divorce since they were young, they were particularly sensitive to this aspect. In order to prevent her sister from experiencing this, the two of them discussed a solution. That is, let the sister-in-law seduce me, and her sister pretended not to know, wanting to see if I would do something wrong. This led to the following series of events. Including the sister-in-law's subsequent seduction and even extreme ideas, they were all part of their plan. I was stunned and opened my mouth, not knowing what to say. The two sisters turned out to be calculating vixens. Why bother? What's more, the sister-in-law made such a big sacrifice. My wife might be afraid that I would be angry, so she hurried to my side to explain. She said that she didn't mean it, but she had too deep feelings for me and was too scared, so she did it. I didn't say anything, just motioned the sister-in-law to go out first. I won't be angry. It's better if all this is fake, so I don't have to be embarrassed all the time. But it's impossible for me to pretend that nothing happened. Let my wife compensate me first. The evil fire seduced by my sister-in-law has not been vented yet. I watched my sister-in-law walk out of the room. I don't know if it's an illusion, but this time I saw a strong jealousy in her eyes. Shaking my head, I threw away these distracting thoughts and walked towards my wife with a sly smile. Wife, don't sleep tonight. There are so many tricks in your mind. Let me experience them.